That is Hashem. Today's daf is Masechta Baba Kamma, daf Mem Gimel, and we Samach Gimel, and we're going to begin from Samach Beis and Beis from about like 7 lines from the bottom, 10 lines from the bottom. I'm just going to point out to you. Let's just learn the psukim so we can understand what the Gemara is talking about. The first thing the pasuk says over here. If a man will steal, this is the psukim parsha mishpatim. If a man will steal an ox or a sheep, mechaveroi utvachay mecharei, you shechted it or sold it, chamisha boka yishalam tachas hashar va'arba tzoyin tachas haseh. To replace the stolen item that you took, plus you shechted it or sold it, you have to pay for a shar or set five cows for a shar, and 4 sheep for a seh. Now, in the Torah says about what happened in Machteres. We'll discuss that later. Im himotze simotze biyode hagneva mishorat chamor atzeh chayim. If the geneva was found alive, that means he didn't shecht it. Then you pay shnayim, double. Okay, so that's the difference between above tashlume kefil and tashlume above v'chamisha. Tashlume above v'chamisha only applies by a cow or a sheep. Then the pasuk says a little bit later, ki'itin ish el ba'eo kesef akel lishmar. Man gives a man gives to his friend silver or kalim to watch, coins. V'guna mebeis ish im yimatze haganav. If you find the ganav, we so pashtus, it means you find ganef. The shomer says it was stolen, and if we find the actual ganef, then you pay 2. We'll call this pasuk number 1. In lo yimatzei ganef, if you don't find the ganef, then the nikra balabayis alahim, the balabayis brings the shomer to bezdin. In lo yishalach b'yodem b'mnechas re'ehu, he has to make swear that he didn't touch the item. He didn't keep it for himself. And a kultivar pesha, no matter what negligence he did, the shomer has to swear al shar, al chamor, if it was an ox he was watching, a donkey, al seh, or sheep, al salma, if he was watching an item of clothing, al kol aveda, or even if he was watching a lost item. Asher yoimar, that an Adam come, this means an Adam come and says, ki hu, we see it by the shomer, he didn't, it wasn't stolen. And zeh, that he swore of, that it's not in his rishus, it really is in his domain. Adar lehim yaved v'ashreim, the shomer takes to the debate with the Edom. Asher yashinim elihim, if the bezdin will find the shomer as guilty, yishalem shnayim l're'eh, he pays double. Okay, so let's read the Gemara. That's all you have to know. So we said tashlume amidash tashlume kefel noiheges. Kefil applies by no matter what. You mean, in other words, you could steal an item of clothing, and you're obligated to pay kefil. Remember, above v'chamisha was only by a shore and a seh. So the Gemara asks, "No, how do I know that kefil applies by any item, not even just animals?" Rabbi taught a kol dvar pesha. You swear on any negligence. Klal, that's a general rule. Ashar al-chamor al-salma, the Torah gives you examples. What might you be watching? Ox, donkey, sheep, and item of clothing, prat, that's a detail. Akol aveda, then the Torah says, even any lost item you were watching. Chazav the klal prat the klal. If you have a general rule, an example, and a general rule, iatadon elkeina prat, then we only define the din of kefil only if it's similar to the prat. Maha prat mufurish davar metaltal gufay moment. Just like the details are something that are movable, and it's worth money. Av kol davar hamitaltal v'gufay moment. So therefore, you'll pay kefil on any item that you stole that's movable, and it itself is worth money. Yotzu kakois. If you steal property, let's say you move the fence of your property to incorporate your neighbor's property, and you were found guilty of stealing his land, you don't pay double, she'ena metalton, because you're stealing something that doesn't move around. Yatsu avodim, if you steal somebody's slave, it wouldn't be, you wouldn't pay shuk shel because that is compared to a karka. And just like karka, there's no kefil. There's no kefil if you steal an evet kanani. Yatsu stores, if you steal a bond or debt instrument, even though you can carry it around, right? Not a certificate, and gufay it's not itself intrinsically not worth any money. You steal from Hegdish, you don't pay kefil. The Torah says, if you steal from your friend, I only know you pay kefil if you steal an animal, because an animal, its carcass gives off tumah whether you touch it or carry it. But if you steal a bird, how do I know you pay kefil? Maybe I would say you don't pay kefil, because the examples that the Torah gives is shar, chamar, seah, salmo. Says the Gemara, mi matzis amrit hachi. Can you say that it applies by that it does not apply by birds? But salma kasib. But the Torah says that kefil applies even if you steal an item of clothing. So the Gemara answers, Amri, no. Amri, the Gemara answers, Anamba Balachayim Kamrin. When you look at the Torah's examples of livestock that you pay kefil for, the Torah only gives examples of real live animals, of animals that Ema Babalachayim Davish Nivlasim Mitaba Magamasa in. If you steal something that its nevela is mitama with magamasa, so then you pay kefil. But a bird, which is a bird's carcass, a bird's dead body is not metamayu. Loi, I wouldn't know that you pay kefil. Why? We go to Samach Gimel Lamed Aleph. Kol chad v'chad klal uprat ba'apei nafshi darshin lei. Each klal uprat will darshin by itself, and therefore, when you are adding into the rule a prat called an animal, it'll be only something similar to an animal, but not a bird. So the question is, how do I know if I steal a bird, you pay kefil? Answers the Gemara, in Cain, if the Torah did not include birds, Nichtev Rachmana Chad Prata. The Torah should have written one example of an animal. Why did the Torah give you three examples? Shor, Chamor, and Seh. Shor is an ox, Chamor is a donkey, Seh is a sheep. Why did the Torah give you three examples? It must be, it includes birds. So the Gemara says, Hey Nichtev Rachmana. Which of the examples should the Torah have written? Which of the animals should the Torah have written? Because of Rachmana Shor, if the Torah would have written ox, Havamina, I would have thought, Karav Lagabe Mizbeach, and Shein Karav Lagabe Mizbeach, Loy. That if it goes on to the Mizbeach, if it's something that goes on to the Mizbeach, you pay kefil. But if it's something that's not brought in the Beis Hamikdash, you wouldn't pay kefil. So therefore, the Torah had to write chamor. A chamor is a donkey that cannot be brought as a carbon. The ikas of Rachmana chamor, if the Torah would have written that a donkey you pay kefil, havamina, I would have thought only a donkey you pay kefil, kodesh b'chora en, something that has kedushas b'chor, you pay kefil on. She'ain kodesh b'chora, which is not kodesh b'chora, which doesn't have kedusha b'chora, right? Let's say if you steal a dog. There has no kedushas b'char, I would think you don't pay kefil. That's why the Torah wrote an extra animal, shar. So shar is different. So imke amri imke. So now nichtav rachmana shar v'chamar. The Torah just had to write an ox and a donkey, and I would know every other animal you pay kefil. Why did the Torah write you have to pay kefil for a sheep? Just by writing ox and donkey, I know a sheep. It teaches you that a bird also you would pay kefil. As the Gemara, the Ema, maybe I would say, La tumya oifis tahirim. Maybe it only includes kosher birds. Dumya deseh. That's similar to a sheep. The metama begodim abesabliya. That a sheep is something that that an oif tahar. If you could become tameh if you eat the oif tar, the nevelis oif tar, and you swallow it, once it goes into your throat, it's metamayu begodim. So therefore, only a kosher bird you would pay kefil for. Aval oisfis tmeim, but a dead bird, a tummy bird like an eagle. If you steal an eagle, the less but tuma. There's no tuma when it dies. The metama begodim abesabliya. It doesn't metama a person if you eat it. A dead bird is not metama. A non-kosher dead bird. So I might think you don't pay kefil. So again, how do I know if I steal a non-kosher bird, you pay kefil for? That's the Gemara's question. Answers the Gemara, kol ribuya. The Gemara switches it now. Once the Torah wrote, I'll kol dvar pesha, right? Kol, once you write kol, anything that you're, right? What's the pasuk? The pasuk says, I'll kol dvar pesha, right? You write the word on anything that you're holding that you could be negligent about. So therefore, it says kol, so that's automatically includes anything. And we're just limiting what the exclusions are minimal. A ribui miyat ribui is something that you include everything, and you just limit it, you limit things that kefil will not apply for the most extreme items. So that's the Gemara's answer. Kol will be marba, will include a bird. Says the Gemara, v'chol heicha the cause of kol rebuya here. Whenever the Torah wrote a kol, is that marba everything? Well, gabe meiser, with meiser sheni money, you could buy an animal with it. You have meiser sheni money, but can I buy mushrooms with it? Or can I buy, a wallet with it? How do you know it has to be something to be eaten? The ksiv, the pasuk says koil. The Torah also wrote you can use the money for anything you want, but it's limited because darshin b'chlal prat, and we darshin it with a klal prat, despite that it says the word kol there. The Tanya, we learned in a braysa, nasata kesa, you can only use the money b'chol asher ta'ava nafshecha. Klal, whatever your heart desires, or your soul desires. For example, if you want to buy cattle, sheep, wine, and beer, prat, that's a detail. Anything that your soul asks for, you can use the ma'aser sheni money. Chazav a klal, the Torah repeats itself. Klal, prat, the klal. You have a general rule, a detail, and a general rule. And therefore, it's only like the prat. Ma prat, you can only include to purchase with ma'aser sheni money. It's something that comes from another fruit. It means it could create offspring. Vigedule karka, and it grows from the ground. Even animals, even though it doesn't pop out of the ground, but an animal eats from the ground. It sustains itself from the ground. So let's say you can buy fruits with ma'aser sheni money. Avkol prima pri ugdule karka. So also you can only use ma'aser sheni money for prima pri ugdule karka, but you can't buy everything with ma'aser sheni money. You can't buy a pocketbook with ma'aser sheni money. So you're limited, despite that it says bekol. So how do you say that the kol that's written by kefil includes tummy birds? How do you know? Bekol could also sometimes be limiting. Answers the Gemara. For the first teretz is Amrei. The Gemara answers, bikol, the word bikol, klalahu, is a general rule, a klal, but it's limited. It's a general rule, but it's limited by similar to the detail. Kol, but if you have the word kol without the base, ribuyihi, it's an all-inclusive word. It means literally everything is included into the subject. So by kefil, since it uses the word kol, everything is included into the subject matter of kefil. And because of that, therefore, it would include even a tamei bird would also be included in the halacha of you would have to pay kefil. The ganav would have to pay double. The Iba is saying, if you want, I can tell you, klal, klalahu. Generally, the word kal is a klal, a general rule. And therefore, it wouldn't be so all-inclusive over here. Mihu, however, kol dahacha, the kol that's written by kefil ribuyihi is much all-inclusive. Why? Michte, let us see. Kiksiv mi'ikara klal prata klal. The Torah actually discusses kefil right at the very beginning. The ksiv kitin ish al re'eu klal kesav v'kelim prat lishmar hadav klal. So the Torah did write that. I gave you a few details. So if you see on your screen, what the Gemara is basically saying, here, right over here, kiyitin ish, when it talks about kefil, the Torah says, if you give your friend kesav v'kelim lishmar, right? So the Torah gave you an example of silver or kalim, vessels, and you are obligated to watch it. And then it got stolen, and you're the stealer, or the guy pays double. But then the Torah gives you always pay double if it's a chamor, a sheh, a salma, kolabeda. The Torah wrote more details. Why didn't the Torah, the Gemara's question is, why didn't the Gemara put all the details in one sentence by the first pasuk right over here. So since the Torah overexpressed itself, it must mean that the Torah really includes in the parsha of Kefil everything. It includes everything, and even non-kosher birds are in the parsha of Kefil. So the Gemara says, okay, now that everything is in the parsha of Kefil, and you're very limited on what you're going to exclude, so the Gemara says, now that you said kol is an all-inclusive word, then what does all these pratim, what do all these pratim limited? So Gemara says, chad lamute karka. One limits that kefil doesn't apply by karka. Chad lamute avodim. One limits it that kefil does not apply if you steal an eved. Chad lamute shtaris. One limits that kefil does not apply by bonds and documents. Salma, an item of clothing. Lamute, it excludes mute dava shenim mesuyim, something that does not have a sign on it. For example, and here's an interesting thing, I guess the way Rashi would understand it, something that doesn't have a siman on it. Usually an item of clothing that you have has a sign on it that you can tell it belongs to you. But if, let's say you steal a Dixie cup, would you pay kefil? So you wouldn't pay kefil on that, right? Because it's davar she'einu mesuyim. There's no siman on that. So therefore that's also excluded. Al kol aveda, on any lost item, what does that teach you? You pay kefil or not? Rabbi Yochanan said, "Hatoyin tanas ganav be'aveda." Let's say you pick up an item. We go to Samech Bim Gimel Beis. The Torah is teaching you that let's say you found a lost item, and you decided you want to keep it. Then the owner comes and says, "Where's my item?" And you say, "Oh, I found it, but it was stolen." So I would think, so the Torah tells you that even if you found the item, it wasn't deposited by you, but you found something, and now you claim it's stolen, and then you want to do tshuva and say, I stole it. So then you pay mishalem tashlum kefil. You would pay double. Shnema akol aveda. Anything that you find and you deny and claim it was stolen, and you turn out to be the ganev, you would also pay ashiyomek yuzeh. You would also be in the parsha of kefil. Now the Gemara switches gears and talks about toyin tanas ganav. Again, what is a toyin tanas ganav? Means somebody deposits by you something to watch, and then you claim that the reason why you can't return the item is because you claim it was stolen. So tanan hasa, that's called a toyin tanas ganav. Tanan hasa, we learned over there. Heichem pigdoy. The guy says, "Where's the item that I deposited by you to watch?" Amalei, he said, "Avad, it was lost. Somehow I can't find it. Mashbiachani, I make you swear that it was lost. Amen. If he says, I swear, and then the Edom said, hey, what are you claiming it's lost? You destroyed it or you used it. So then he pays the principal back. If he did shuva and says, you know what, I swore that it was lost, but really I took it for myself. Mishalim, you would pay back Karen, the principal. Chaimish, another 20%. Va'asham, and you have to bring a carbon asham. Now the guy says, Heichem pigdoini, where is my deposited item? Amaloi, he says to him, Nignav, it was stolen. Mashbiachani, and then he says, so here he's toyin tanas ganav. He's not toyin tanas avad, he's toyin tanas ganav. The Edom in Inui saying the Edom say you were the one that stole it, Shaganvai. Then Misham Tashlim Kefil. Then he pays Kefil. Hoida Atzmai, but if he admitted it without Edom, without Edom, so then Misham Karen Chaimish Vasham. He has to Karen Chaimish, and he has to bring a carbon because he swore falsely. So Ketanimia. So the Gemara interrupts the Brisa and says, let's understand it. Ketanimia. We learn a partial quote. B'toyin tanas ganav, b'shalim tashlume kefil. If you taina that something was stolen, you pay tashlume kefil double. Avo b'toyin tanas of it. But if you claim that something was lost and you really were the one that took it, loy mishalim tashlume kefil, then you wouldn't pay kefil. La'afilu toyin tanas ganav, and even if you taned that it was stolen, b'shvuahu de mishalim. Only if you swear you pay kefil, tashlum kefil. If you didn't swear that it was stolen, you don't pay tashlume kefil. So the Gemara wants to know, how do you see this in the pasuk? So menahani mili, how do we know? Rabban, the rabbis taught. The Torah said im yimotze aganav, which is pasuk number 1. A man gives to his friend in the screen kesef v'keil lishmar, and it was stolen. Im yimotze aganav yisham shnaim. Who's this ganav? Is the ganav somebody else, or the ganav is he himself? So that's the Gemara is dealing with. 2 brises. Im yimotze aganav b'toyin tanas ganav hakasim dara. If he turns out to be the ganav, that's why you learn the pasuk. Im yimotze aganav, if the shomer was the ganav. Says the Gemara, Ata oimer b'toyin tanas ganav, or ene b'ganav atzmai. Maybe the Torah is saying if you find somebody else as the ganav, he pays double. Maybe the first pasuk is talking about the pasuk later on is talking about a tonis ganav. How do you know it's talking about a tonis tanas ganav? Maybe it's talking about you find somebody else as the ganav. Kishu oimer, but when pasuk number 2 says im lo ganav, if that pasuk is talking about toyin tanas ganav hakasim dabar, then pasuk number 1 is also talking about toyin tanas ganav. What the Gemara basically said over here, if this pasuk right over here, number 2, is talking about a toyin tanas ganav, because that's how it turns out if he ki huzeh, he's the ganav. This is clearly talking about a toyin tanas ganav. So im yomotze ganav means that this also is talking about a toyin tanas ganav, and the toyin tanas ganav will pay double. So your question is, why do I need 2 psukim to teach you by a toyin tanas ganav that pays double? We'll see that in the Gemara's question soon. But leave that as it may. That's how the first brisa learns the pasuk. Tanya idach, but another brisa learns im yimotze haganav. The first pasuk im yimotze haganav is beganav atzmei kasum daber, that you actually find somebody else, not the shomer that stole it, but it's a ganav that stole it. Maybe the first pasuk is talking about he himself is tining a ganav that it was stolen. Kishu oimem lo yimotze haganav. When the second pasuk talks about that's talking about harei toyin tanas ganav oma. The second pasuk is talking about he's claiming it was stolen. So what is the first pasuk talking about? Hamani mekayim yimotze haganav. If you find a thief, beganav atzmei kasum daba, you find that somebody else took it, that he claimed it was stolen, and actually it turned out that actually somebody else stole it. And the Torah is telling you that you find a ganav, he pays double. So basically 2 different brises. One learned that pasuk number 1, here's pasuk number 1, Yimotze Ganav is talking about toyin tanas ganav, and the second pasuk is also toyin tanas ganav, and both psukim say you pay double. The question is, why do I need 2 psukim teaching you the same idea? That's another question. But the first pasuk is telling you that the other brisa says Yimotze Ganav is talking about the ganav himself, and im lo Yimotze Ganav is talking about a toyin tanas ganav. So the Gemara says the kuli alma mihas, both of them hold that the second pasuk in lo yimotze aganav b'toyin tanas ganav ksiv, that's talking about a toyin tanas ganav. My mashma, how do you understand the pasuk? How do you know he's claiming it was a ganav and it turns out he's the guilty one? Amarova, this is how you read Chumash. In lo yimatze, if you can't find a ganav, kamosh Amar, you looked around and he says, there was somebody else that stole it from me. And we started the whole investigation and you can't find somebody, the thief. So it's like Columbo. Elashuhu atzmei ganave. So it must be that he himself, the shomer himself, stole it. Yishalem shnayim, then he pays double. So manolam de b'shua. How do you know he pays double only after he swore that it was stolen? Tanya, because the pasuk says v'nikra balabais elohim, that they brought him to Bezdin. It doesn't clearly say that he swore, but we're going to interpret it that he was brought to Bezdin lishvua, to swear. Maybe they brought him to the court, but it doesn't mean that he took an oath. So the Gemara says, since the pasuk says v'nikra balabais Elohim, right? He was brought to Bezdin. So and im loy shalach yodai b'neches re'eu, he has to swear that im loy shalach b'yan. And here in this pasuk it says shvuas Hashem im loy shalach yodai b'neches re'eu. That just like over here it's talking about he took an oath. So also over here on the other pasuk it means he took an oath. Fine. So in order to pay double, the shomer would have to have taken an oath that it was stolen for him. So now, and we'll finish up in another minute. The Gemara just says over here, everything makes perfect sense. That one pasuk is chad beganav, v'chad b'koyin ganas ganav. Hainidik siftrei kroi. That's why I have two psukim. A ganav pays double, and a toyin tanis ganav pays double. If they're both talking about a shomer who's claiming that it was stolen, why do I need two psukim to teach us the same idea that he pays double? So the Gemara answers, Chad limu'ute tanis ovad, that only if he claims that it was stolen does he pay double. But if he claims that it was lost, he would not pay double. The shomer would not pay kefil if it turns out he was the one that stole the item, but he was only claiming it was lost, so he wouldn't get the knas of kefil. How does he doesn't have that extra pasuk? The one that learned that the pasuk is by ganav and one pasuk is by toyin tanis ganav. How does he know tanis ovid? You don't pay kefil. Answers the Gemara, miganav, haganav, because the pasuk added an extra bay. In lo yimotze haganav, the hay adds only if he claimed that it was stolen, not if he claimed that it was lost. Two more questions. According to the Mandiyama that had that the both psukim were talking about toyin tanas ganav, and he already knows that a toyin tanas ovad doesn't pay kefil. So what does he do with the extra gay of haganav? Amalach, he teaches you another teaching Rabbi Chiya bar Abba Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Chiya bar Abba Rabbi Yochanan, a toyin tanas ganav b'pikad misham tashlum kefil. If it so happens that he was watching a shar v'chamor, a shar oiseh, an ox or a sheep, so if he claims it was stolen, then he could pay kefil, of course, after a shvuah. But the Torah doesn't discuss what happens if he shechted it or he sold it. Would you pay abba v'chamisha? So that what you need haganav. We give him all the halachas of haganav, that no matter what, if sometimes you pay kefil, and sometimes if he tainis ganav, and it turns out he was tavach or machar, he would pay abba chamisha. Ask the Gemara, the ganav puke. According to the Mandiyama that used the haganav to teach you to limit that tinus of it, you wouldn't pay kefil. How do you know that tavach or machar you would pay tashlum mashalim tashlum abba chamisha? Amalach say hekesha ve'ein mashivin al hekesh. We'll stop over here. That it's a hekesh, a juxtapositions. Once you're already calling him a ganav, so we automatically apply all the halachas of ganaf on him, that he pays kefil, and in certain circumstances we will pay abba v'chamisha. And this Mandiyama doesn't need an extra limud of a hay to teach you that idea. It's just a simple juxtaposition of a ganaf to the idea of abba v'chamisha, which will teach you that a bal pikadain, the guy is a shomer, if he tainis ganav, and it turns out it was a shar or said he actually sold it, he would pay abba v'chamisha. Okay, we ended this daf of Bava Kamma.
Where did you leave?
So I left off by Bishlama, 5 lines from the bottom. Bishlama.
Daf